Thanks be to God. Let's bow. Holy and awesome Father, we thank you for your word of truth. We thank you for speaking to us so clearly, so convincingly, in a manner in which touches the very depth of our souls. Thank you for your word of truth. I humbly pray, we humbly pray that this brief reflection upon your word of truth would be an accurate meditation, reflection, and that through your word, through this message, we would be reminded of the essence of what real, true, authentic faith is. Please, Lord God, speak to us, enable us to hear you, and enliven our hearts to leave here today more committed to you than before we arrived. Increase our passion to bless you and to glorify you. Please. For all of this is in the glorious and awesome name of Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, Messiah, King, Savior, and Lord. Amen. Alexander Graham Bell, we've all heard of him. He was a brilliant man, and he was very, very talented. He invented what's called the audio meter, which helps people with their hearing, assess a person's hearing. He also invented the landing gear we find on airplanes. Did you know that? Amazing man. In addition to this, he was a co-founder of the prestigious magazine called Science, and he also served as the president of the National Geographic Society and spent much of his life working to help the deaf. Now, the most famous of all of his creations, as all of us know, is what? Telephone. That invention made Alexander Graham Bell, his family, and all of his descendants a tremendous amount of money. But he almost lost it all. He did. How, you might ask? Well, he never seemed to find the time to submit a patent application for the telephone. Well, finally, his father-in-law, who grew tired of Bell's procrastination and impatience, he took it upon himself to go down to the patent office and file Alexander Graham Bell's patent for the telephone on his own. He did that on February 14th, 1876. That was Bell's 29th birthday. It was a good thing he did. You know why? Because just a few hours later, not days or weeks or months, but a few hours later that day, another man walked into the patent office. His name was Elisha Gray. He filed papers for the machine that he had been working on for many years. You know what it was? Telephone. The story reminds us that it is not good enough simply to have or believe in a thought or have an idea in our mind. We need to act on them. I mean, think about it. What good is it for us to have an idea or to have a good intention if we don't follow through on that good idea or good intention? Alexander Graham Bell and his father-in-law are a really good example of the intimate relationship between faith and works. Bell had faith in the potential and power of his newly invented telephone, and his father-in-law had that same kind of faith, but he also had the works to follow through with it, to get the patent, to get it done, to make it available. The father-in-law did the action that made it all happen. Jesus' brother, James, he tells us clearly what it means to be both hearers of the word and doers of the word, what it means to be real, what it means to be the real deal as Christian sisters and brothers. He shows us how faith and works relate, how they are actually two sides of the same coin. 3 times in verses 17, 20, and 26, he repeats this statement. He says, faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. You think he's trying to get a point across? What James is saying is that faith, not accompanied by action, is an empty faith. It's a false faith. It's a pretend faith. It's a facade. It's nothing more than mouthing words. Christ himself put it this way in Matthew 7, 16 to 20. He says, you will know them by their fruits. Grapes are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor fig trees from thistles. Are they? So every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then, Christ says, you will know them by their fruits. Now, when Jesus says you will know them by their fruits, he is obviously talking about our actions. But when Christ specifically uses the imagery of fruit, he refers to grapevines and fig trees. Brothers and sisters, when we see grapevines, what do we expect them to produce? Grapes. When we see fig trees, what do we expect them to produce? Figs. A farmer who notices that one of his fruit trees is not bearing any fruit will do what to it? Cut it down. Get rid of it. And maybe take the wood and throw it into the fire. What else is it good for? And then what the farmer will often do is replace that tree with another tree that will do what it's supposed to do. Do what it's created for, right? In the same way, we would never expect a field of thistles to harvest a crop of fruit. You see, thistles can't produce fruit. It goes against their very nature. Thistles don't do that. And so it is with us. Our every word, our every action is fruit from our hearts. Sinners sin because that's what is in their hearts, our hearts. Thieves steal, rapists attack, murderers kill, adulterers cheat, drunkards drink, liars lie, deceivers deceive, haters hate, and fakers fake, because those sins are the fruit being produced from a sinful and evil heart. Bad hearts produce bad fruit. Good hearts produce good fruit. Christian hearts produce very good fruit. That's what Jesus meant when he said in Matthew 7:16, you will know them by their fruits. You see, the true Christian faith must, not can, not should, but must be accompanied by good Christian deeds. Now, having said that, it's important to remember this. We don't do good deeds in order to be Christians or in order to become a Christian. That's not how it works. But because we are Christians, we do good deeds. There's a big difference. In other words, Christianity comes from within and expresses itself outward in Christ-like action. Billy Graham put it this way. He said, faith is taking the gospel in. Works is taking the gospel out. It's like inhaling and exhaling. You see, faith is never something to just talk about. It's something that must be demonstrated by the way we live. Outside, in front of everybody else, and behind closed doors when nobody else is watching. Paul Harvey once said, if you don't live it, you don't really believe it. If you don't live it, you don't really believe it. He's 100% right. Jesus' brother James put it this way, James 2:18, Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. It'd be like planting a seed. You know, a seed's purpose, right? A seed's purpose is to produce life, right? It'd be like planting a seed. But what if that seed just stays in the ground? It doesn't germinate, it doesn't do anything. It's just put in the hole and it's covered up and it doesn't do anything. It may have all the potential in the world, but so what? Who cares about the potential? What good is it if it doesn't produce anything? All it's doing is taking up space. In John chapter 15, Christ put it this way. He said, quote, I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him bears much fruit. Much fruit. For apart from me you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is thrown away like a branch and dries up. And they gather them and throw them into the fire. There's that imagery again. And are burned. Then he says this. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. Brothers and sisters, do you have that kind of faith? Austin, do you have it? Do we have that kind of faith, that action-filled faith? Or do we just talk? You all may have heard of the man named Charles Blondin. Charles Blondin was arguably the greatest tightrope walker who ever walked the face of this earth. One of his greatest accomplishments was walking multiple times, by the way, across Niagara Falls. 11,000 feet long was the tightrope, 11,000 feet, and it was 160 feet above the water. As I said, he did it time and time again in a number of different ways. Sometimes he did it blindfolded, other times he did it pushing a wheelbarrow. One time he did it by carrying a man on his back. One time he did it while, what he did was he walked halfway across the tightrope, across Niagara Falls. He sat down on this tightrope and he made himself a sandwich and he ate it. But one day before attempting to push a wheelbarrow across the falls, he asked the big crowd, and you can imagine there was a big crowd gathered there that day. He asked the crowd a question. He said, how many of you believe that I can push this wheelbarrow across that tightrope, across Niagara Falls, with somebody in it? And the whole crowd, every single one of them shouted, we believe, oh yes, we believe, oh yes, we believe. And then he asked for volunteers. You could have heard a pin drop. Complete silence. 5 seconds went by. 10 seconds went by. Complete silence. 15 seconds, complete silence. 20 seconds, complete silence. At about 30 seconds, one man steps out and says, I'll do it. I'll do it. And he got in the wheelbarrow. There's a huge difference between the crowd and that man. And there's often a huge difference between the faith people say they have and the action that expresses that faith. The faith they say they believe in. See, brothers and sisters, the measure of our faith is not our talk. The measure of our faith is our walk. It's what we do. Our actions are the ultimate demonstration of what we truly believe. Simply saying we are a great artist or a great pianist or a great writer or a great speaker or a great golfer or a great whatever or a great Christian. Whatever it is we think we are great at does not mean a thing unless we are able to demonstrate that we are indeed what we say we are. Real faith, true faith, authentic faith is faith in action, nothing less. Hebrews 11:6, I'll remind us of this, says this. Please don't forget this. Memorize it. Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith meaning real faith, faith in action. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. You can't do it. You can't do it. Without faith in who? Without faith in Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Without faith in Jesus, it is impossible to please God. You cannot do it. Jesus himself said the same thing in John chapter 15:5. He says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Nothing. What does Jesus mean by that? What do you mean, apart from me, you can do nothing? I mean, think about it. There's many more people in this world who are not Christians who do some pretty decent things, right? Sometimes. Do some good things. Well, what does Christ mean when he says, apart from me, you can do nothing? Well, what he means is, we need to have Jesus in our lives, truly, authentically. We must be saved. If we want to accomplish anything in this life of any significance to God the Father, anything meaningful that pleases the very heart of God comes from a true, sincere faith in Jesus Christ. Everything else means nothing. Might mean something to us. Might mean something to somebody else. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. Having faith in Jesus and expressing that faith to the world around us through our actions is what we were born to do. Let me ask you a quick question. What is the chief end of man? To glorify God and to enjoy His presence forever. According to the Scriptures, there is no other way to glorify God than to live our faith and to share our faith. A few years ago, I was reminded of this in a powerful way. It was a Friday afternoon, and I went to play a round of golf. I had Fridays off when I was a pastor at First Presbyterian Church in Daytona. And I went to play golf by myself, and it was a hot day. Hardly anybody else was around. Nobody was in front of me, and nobody was pushing me. And I remember vividly, I was about to tee off on the third hole when a ranger pulls up beside me. And he strikes up this conversation. He says, hi. I said, hi. How you doing? I'm doing well. How are you doing? And, small talk, that type of thing. And this man told me, in the course of just a couple of minutes, believe it or not, that he had died twice and been revived back to life, and he just couldn't make any sense out of it whatsoever. And I asked the man, I said, sir, are you saved? And he looked at me and he said, oh, you mean that Jesus stuff? I said, yes, sir, that Jesus stuff. He said, no. When I die, aliens are going to come down out of the sky, and they're going to pick me up, and then they're going to take me back up to the special place in the skies. And this guy believed that. He wasn't joking. And I stopped him right there, and I said, sir, maybe the reason God has spared your life twice, enabled you to cheat death twice, is because He wants you to have eternal life with Him, and He has something more for you to do in this world. Have you ever thought about that? And have you ever thought about the only way that you will ever receive that gift of eternity with God is through Jesus Christ, His only Son? And you know what he did? He rolled his eyes, and he stepped on that accelerator in that car, and that guy took off like a scared rat. Now, what does that experience have to do with having the gospel within us, within me, and expressing it outwardly? Well, at least at that point in time, and I've missed a whole lot of opportunities, but at least at that point in time, I put my faith in action. However, could I have done something more? The answer is yes. I could have left that man with something more than just a short conversation, something for him to think about as he took off in that car. I mean, what if I had given that man something to put in his hands, to read? What if I had given that man a tract? What if I was carrying some tracts with me and I gave him one to read? Sir, before you leave, just take this, please. Oh, okay, whatever. He may have thrown it in the nearest garbage can. He may have tossed it to the side on the seat of that car. I don't know. He may have thrown it on the ground. But he may have read it. He may have read it and he may have thought about what it said. He may have pondered it. And that seed, that physical seed that I could have put in his hands, could have made all the difference. Fact is, I was not as prepared for that moment as I could have been. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2, Paul says this, quote, he says, preach the word. And when he says preach the word, he's not talking specifically to preachers. He's talking to all of us Christians. He says, preach the word, but then he says, be ready. Be ready in season and out of season. Be ready at all times. Be ready at the gas station. Be ready on the golf course. Be ready at the grocery store. Always be prepared to share our faith through our words and our actions. That's what he is telling us. In Romans 10:13-15, Paul says this. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Then he goes on and says, how then are they to call on him in whom they have not believed? How are they to believe in him whom they have not heard? And how are they to hear without a preacher, meaning you and me? But how are they to preach unless they are sent? Just as it is written, quote, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news of good things. Brothers and sisters, I am looking in the faces right now of a whole lot of people who have beautiful feet. Who have beautiful feet for the Lord. And you know something? More than ever, this world in which we live needs those beautiful feet. This is a world of darkness. This is a world of danger. Just look at what's going on in the Middle East right now. Push of a button and it's all on. Game over for millions upon millions. More than ever, in this sick and demented, sin-filled world of darkness, God needs our feet. Our beautiful feet. Allow me to close this message with a true story. In April of 1988, the Evening News reported on a photographer who was on a skydiving trip. He had jumped from a plane along with numerous other skydivers and filmed the group as they fell and then opened up their parachutes. On the film, shown on the telecast, as the final skydiver opened his chute, the picture went berserk. I don't know if you saw it. I remember seeing this. The announcer reported that mistakenly the cameraman had fallen to his death, having jumped out of the plane without his parachute. It wasn't until he reached for the absent ripcord that he realized he was free-falling without a parachute. And get this, up to that point, he was probably having a great time. He was all exuberant. He was all excited. But nothing could save him now, because his faith was in a parachute that he never strapped on. And he never buckled. So many people these days are putting their faith in things, the things of this world. They're putting them their faith in objects. They're putting their faith in things like money, fame, fortune, entertainment. And some of them are putting their faith in people. In people. But you know what the truth is? The truth is they're putting their faith in things, in objects, in people that can never, ever, ever fill a hole in their hearts. They can never. Feed them to the point of where they're no longer hungry anymore in their souls. And that's where we come in. Through our faith in action, we can lead them to the one who can and will give them exactly what they're looking for. So beginning today, I will be carrying with me at least one tract about salvation. I may be carrying it in my pocket, may have it in the car, I may be carrying it in my Bible. So the next time I meet someone who believes that when they die, aliens are going to come down and pick them up and take them to a special place in the sky, or the next time I meet somebody who feels like life is worthless, the next time I meet somebody who thinks that, it's just not worth it anymore, that they think life is meaningless, the next time I can give them some food for thought. I can give them something more than just saying something. I can put something in their hands. I can give them some food that may someday nourish their souls and lead them to the truth. If you would like to join me in doing that, Kristen and I have purchased several tracts. They're out here in the foyer. As you leave today, please feel free to take as many as you want. We'll reload. Take as many as you like. Why? So that we together, can always, in season and out of season, be ready to put our faith into action. And thereby show the world, but more importantly, show God that we are indeed the real deal. Let's get to it. Let's get those beautiful feet ready. Let's be lights in the darkness of the sick and filled. Dark. World needs us, brothers and sisters. God has called us. Stand up. Stand up. For Jesus. To God be the glory. Today, tomorrow, and forevermore. And the children of God say, Amen.